Ladies and gentlemen, let me ask you something. How long are you going to wait? How long are you going to sit there knowing that there is more inside you, more courage, more power, more drive, more life? Because here's the truth most people avoid. Your life changes the moment you decide it must. Not when conditions are perfect, not when you feel ready, not when someone else gives you permission. It changes the moment you draw a line in the sand and say, enough. I'm done playing small. Today on Tony Robbins' track, we are going to take a deep dive into how to push yourself, how to make it happen, and how to transform hesitation, fear, and excuses into unstoppable power. By the end of this video, you won't just be motivated, you'll be activated. Every step, every principle we cover will give you the tools to crush mediocrity and step into the life you were born to live. Every single moment of your life, you are making choices, sometimes consciously, sometimes unconsciously. And those choices determine the trajectory of your entire existence. Decisions shape destiny. That is not a cliché. That is a principle as real as gravity. Think about it, every major turning point in your life, every breakthrough or setback began with a decision. Maybe it was a decision to speak up when silence was easier, a decision to take a risk when comfort beckoned, a decision to invest in yourself when fear whispered you couldn't, or even a decision to let go of something that no longer served you. Each choice, no matter how small it seems at the moment, is like dropping a stone in a pond. The ripples spread far beyond what you can see, and the accumulation of these ripples shapes the lake of your life. Yet most people underestimate the power of their own decisions. They wait for external circumstances to align, believing that the perfect moment exists somewhere on the horizon. They say things like, I'll do it when I feel ready, or I'll start tomorrow, when things are less complicated. But here's the truth. Readiness is a myth. Perfection is a lie. There is only the decision to act. Every person who has ever achieved extraordinary results made the same choice. You take action despite fear, uncertainty, and imperfection. You commit fully to the course you choose, and you refuse to let hesitation dictate the terms of your life. Decisions are powerful because they are the starting point of momentum. A decision alone doesn't do the work for you, but it sets the foundation upon which action builds. When you decide to no longer tolerate mediocrity, for example, everything changes. You begin to notice opportunities that previously passed you by unnoticed. Your energy aligns differently. You start to notice the people who support your growth and distance yourself from those who drain it. Your habits subtly shift. Your thinking elevates, and your environment adjusts in response. One decision triggers another, and soon what seemed impossible becomes inevitable. And here's a critical point. Not all decisions are dramatic or earth-shattering in appearance. Sometimes the most consequential decisions are the tiny ones. The decision to wake up an hour earlier, to say yes when your instinct says no, to read instead of scroll, to ask a question instead of staying silent. These micro decisions compound over time. They are the invisible forces that determine whether you stagnate or soar. Many people fail to recognize them because they expect change to announce itself loudly and dramatically. But life rarely works that way. Transformation is subtle, built brick by brick through repeated choices that reflect your standards and priorities. Speaking of standards, this is where the second keynote comes in. Raise your standards. If decisions shape destiny, then standards determine the quality of those decisions. When your standards are low, your decisions will reflect compromise, convenience, and comfort. You will accept less than you deserve, tolerate situations that drain you, and allow mediocrity to sneak into your life. But when you raise your standards, you elevate everything in your world. You refuse to settle for excuses. You refuse to settle for temporary satisfaction at the expense of long-term fulfillment. You refuse to negotiate with the vision of who you are capable of becoming. Raising your standards is not about arrogance or entitlement. It's about clarity and alignment with your highest potential. It's about defining what is non-negotiable in your life and refusing to tolerate anything less. When you raise your standards, you are effectively sending a signal to yourself and the universe: I will not accept anything that doesn't move me toward greatness. This changes the way you make decisions. Suddenly, the easy path no longer tempts you as much because you recognize it as a trap. You begin to choose actions that reflect your elevated expectations. You pursue challenges that once intimidated you because your standards demand growth, not stagnation. This principle works because humans are wired to live in alignment with their standards. Your decisions follow your standards naturally. If you want extraordinary results, your standards cannot be ordinary. Consider what happens when someone raises their standards in their personal life. They demand honesty in their relationships, integrity in their interactions, and accountability in their commitments. Their decisions shift accordingly. They no longer tolerate deceit, manipulation, or half-hearted effort. The same applies to business, health, and personal growth. High standards attract high results, and low standards attract mediocrity. Your decisions become a mirror of what you truly value. A challenge, of course, is that raising your standards is uncomfortable. It requires confronting complacency, facing fears, and taking responsibility for areas of your life where you have been passive. It means refusing to blame circumstances, other people, or bad luck for the state of your life. It means looking in the mirror and saying, if I want a different outcome, I must make different choices. And here's the key. It's not enough to intellectually understand this. You must embody it. You must commit fully to standards that stretch you beyond what you thought was possible, and you must make decisions that reinforce those standards every single day. When you combine these two principles, making conscious, bold decisions and raising your standards, the effect is exponential. Decisions gain weight, they gain focus, they gain momentum. Every action you take becomes a deliberate step toward the life you envision. The ripple effect of your choices intensifies, shaping not only your own destiny, but also influencing the people around you. Your environment shifts, opportunities align, and doors open that once seemed locked. It is the difference between drifting through life and actively designing it. The beauty of this approach is that it doesn't rely on external validation or luck. It doesn't matter if the world doubts you or if circumstances are challenging. When your decisions are driven by high standards, and when you act with consistency, resilience, and courage, the results are inevitable. You stop waiting for life to hand you success. You create it. You stop hoping for inspiration. You generate it. You stop asking for permission. You claim what is rightfully yours. And while the process is demanding, it is also empowering. Every decision you make that aligns with elevated standards reinforces your self-belief. Every choice to act despite fear strengthens your confidence. Every time you refuse to settle, you expand your capacity for greatness. Over time, this creates an unstoppable cycle where your standards drive your decisions, and your decisions build your destiny. This is the point where most people stumble. They underestimate the power of commitment. Decisions alone are nothing without standards that enforce them. Standards alone are meaningless without decisive action. The magic happens at the intersection of the two, where clarity of vision meets unwavering resolve, and where courage overrides comfort. This is where you begin to see results that once seemed impossible. This is where your life transforms from ordinary to extraordinary. Too many people wait for confidence to arrive before they take action. They think that if they just feel ready, if the fear fades, if the stars align, then finally they will step forward. But here's the reality. Confidence is not a prerequisite. It is a byproduct of action. You do not discover courage by thinking about it or by waiting for the perfect moment. You discover it by moving through the fear, by stepping into the arena even when your heart is pounding and your mind is screaming that you're not ready. Every step you take despite uncertainty builds confidence like a muscle. Think about it. Infants don't learn to walk because they feel confident in their balance or coordination. They fall over and over again repeatedly until the act of standing and stepping becomes second nature. Confidence is not something you find. You create it through repeated deliberate actions. The same principle applies to every area of life. The first time you speak publicly, start a business, ask for a raise, or confront a difficult truth, you will feel nervous. That's natural, that's human. But it is the act of moving forward, despite those nerves, that generates the inner certainty you are craving. When you wait to feel confident, you delay your growth. You delay your impact. You delay the moment when the ripple of your decisions and actions begins to reshape your life. Action generates clarity. Action generates momentum. Action reveals what you are capable of. And the more consistently you act, the more confidence grows, not before, but because of the action. This is why people who achieve extraordinary results rarely report that they felt ready when they started. They simply decided to start, and confidence caught up along the way. This principle is deeply tied to the next keynote. Fear is a signal, not a stop sign. The very moments that make you hesitate, the moments that make your stomach twist with anxiety, those are the exact moments that matter the most. Fear is not a message telling you to retreat. It is a message telling you that growth is waiting on the other side. Fear is a compass pointing toward where you need to go, where your life is asking for you to expand, to stretch, to evolve. Every time you feel fear, it is an invitation, not a limitation. Most people misinterpret fear. They feel it and immediately assume danger, impossibility, or inadequacy. They let fear dictate their actions, or more accurately, their inaction. They stay within the comfort zone, and as a result, they stagnate. But fear is not your enemy. It is your indicator. When you learn to listen to it, to interpret it correctly, you begin to see that fear signals the areas where your potential is hiding. It is where the most significant rewards are waiting. The people who achieve the most do not have less fear. They have learned to act despite it. They treat fear like a dashboard light in a car. Notice it, understand it, adjust, and keep moving forward. When you combine action before confidence with the correct understanding of fear, you unlock a new level of personal power. You no longer wait for external signals, permissions, or conditions to be perfect. You stop asking yourself if you are ready and instead ask, am I willing to step forward anyway? This willingness to act in spite of uncertainty is the bridge between the life you have and the life you want. Every time you respond to fear with action, you condition yourself to operate at a higher level. You train your mind to see obstacles as opportunities and threats as signals for growth. Consider the way fear operates physiologically. Your body reacts with tension, your heart races, adrenaline surges. That response is the body preparing you to face a challenge, not to avoid it. Your instincts are signaling that this moment matters. If you move in alignment with that signal, if you push forward into the discomfort, you will experience transformation. Action activates confidence, and fear transforms into a fuel that propels you rather than a barrier that restricts you. Action before confidence also reshapes your identity. Every time you act in spite of fear, every time you step beyond hesitation, you prove to yourself who you are. Your identity is not fixed. It is built in real time through your choices and behaviors. The person who waits for confidence is often trapped in the identity of Simone, who is unsure, or Simone, who is not ready. The person who acts first feels second, builds an identity of courage, resilience, and capability. This identity then becomes a self-reinforcing cycle. The more you act, the stronger your identity becomes, and the stronger your identity, the more natural it is to act. When fear is reframed as a signal rather than a stop sign, it becomes a tool rather than a limitation. Each fear you encounter is a roadmap showing exactly where you need to go. Public speaking. That fear is telling you your voice is meant to be heard. Asking for a promotion. That fear signals where your value is ready to be claimed. Starting a new venture. That fear is evidence that you are stepping into uncharted territory where growth and reward live. The key is to move through fear rather than waiting for it to disappear. Fear does not go away. It intensifies until it is met with action. And here's the powerful truth. The brain cannot distinguish between action taken despite fear and action taken with complete confidence. Once you act, the brain rewires itself. Neural pathways develop that reinforce courage, risk-taking, and resilience. Over time, what was once terrifying becomes routine. The physical sensations may persist, but your response evolves. You learn that fear is not something to be eliminated. It is something to be harnessed. And the more you harness it, the greater your capacity for achievement becomes. When people fail, it's rarely because of lack of talent. It's because fear stopped them, hesitation froze them, and waiting for confidence delayed them. On the other hand, the people who succeed consistently act before confidence arrives. They listen to fear, they interpret it correctly, and they move. They understand that every significant leap requires discomfort, and every uncomfortable leap carries the seeds of growth, mastery, and transformation. Fear becomes not the enemy, but the gateway to the life they are capable of living. Every time you choose action over hesitation, every time you see fear as a signal rather than a stop sign, you are reshaping your internal programming. You are teaching yourself that discomfort is a compass pointing toward growth, that uncertainty is the terrain where potential is realized, and that confidence is something earned through courageous movement, not a feeling to wait for. This mindset rewires the way you approach challenges, risk, and opportunity. It transforms hesitation into momentum, paralysis into progress, and fear into fuel. Motivation is fleeting. It comes in waves, unpredictable, unreliable, and often tied to external circumstances. A surge of energy after a pep talk, a burst of excitement when things feel easy, or a spike of inspiration when someone tells you that you can. But life does not wait for motivation to appear, and success does not arrive on the wings of feelings. Discipline beats motivation every single time, because discipline is a decision, a commitment, a standard you set for yourself that is not negotiable. Discipline does not depend on mood, energy, or comfort. It is a choice to act consistently, to honor your commitments to yourself, and to do what needs to be done even when every cell in your body resists. The great achievers, the people who transform ordinary lives into extraordinary ones, are not the ones who wait for motivation. They are the ones who build systems of discipline. They wake up early, they show up when it is hard, they push through doubt, and they refuse to be ruled by fleeting feelings. Motivation may ignite the spark, but discipline fuels the fire and keeps it burning through storms, setbacks, and fatigue. Discipline is the bridge between your goals and your reality. Every time you follow through on a commitment, every time you push past resistance, you reinforce the identity of someone who gets things done. Habits are formed through repeated disciplined action, and these habits compound over time, creating massive leverage in every area of your life. Motivation is temporary. Discipline is permanent. It is what separates those who dream from those who achieve. Discipline is not easy, and it is not glamorous, but it is unstoppable. Momentum creates power. Once discipline sets the foundation and action begins, momentum transforms effort into exponential results. Momentum is the force that carries you forward when challenges arise, when fatigue threatens, when the obstacles feel insurmountable. It is the accumulated effect of consistent action. Every small, disciplined step compounds into speed, energy, and influence. When you take action every day, no matter how small, you are building momentum that makes the next step easier and the next challenge more manageable. Momentum makes your decisions easier because you are moving in alignment with your goals. Momentum generates confidence because it is proof of your capability. Momentum attracts opportunity because energy and motion draws attention and resources. Without momentum, even disciplined action can feel like a grind. But when momentum builds, power builds with it. The small steps taken consistently create a cascade effect where results accelerate, your influence expands, and your potential becomes visible not only to yourself but to the world around you. Pain is not your enemy. Pain is the signal that you are alive, that you are stretching beyond your comfort zone, that growth is happening even when it feels impossible. Every person who has achieved greatness has faced discomfort, struggle, and suffering, and they did not run from it. They leaned into it. Pain builds strength because it forces you to confront limits you didn't know existed. It exposes weaknesses, tests endurance, and challenges resolve. And in the process, it creates resilience, grit, and determination. Physical pain in training strengthens the body. Emotional pain strengthens character. Mental pain sharpens focus and clarity. The moments that feel unbearable are the moments that shape you. Pain teaches lessons that comfort never can. It shows you what matters, what you can withstand, and what you are capable of creating. Those who avoid pain avoid growth, and those who embrace it transform struggle into fuel, weakness into power, and adversity into opportunity. Pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. The difference lies in how you respond. You can let it break you, or you can let it mold you. When you push through, when you refuse to quit despite the discomfort, every step forward becomes a victory, and every victory compounds into strength. Pain becomes a teacher, a guide, and a motivator, pushing you toward the next level of your potential. Without pain, progress is shallow. With it, resilience becomes unstoppable. Excuses destroy progress. Every excuse you tell yourself, every rationalization for why you can't, why it's too hard, why it's not the right time, is a brick in the wall between you and your goals. Excuses are comfortable illusions that make you feel justified in stagnation while secretly eroding confidence and potential. They're the whispered lies of fear disguised as logic, telling you to settle, to delay, to diminish your ambition. Successful people do not have fewer challenges. They have fewer excuses. They acknowledge difficulty, but refuse to let it dictate their actions. Every time you replace an excuse with a solution, every time you confront discomfort instead of avoiding it, you reclaim control over your life. Excuses multiply over time, creating a cycle of inaction and regret, whereas accountability and responsibility compound into momentum, clarity, and achievement. Excuses are seductive because they feel safe. They allow temporary comfort at the cost of long-term fulfillment. They keep you small, safe, and stagnant. But progress requires discomfort, confrontation, and honesty. Every time you catch yourself making an excuse, it is an opportunity to choose courage, discipline, and action instead. Progress is born in the space where excuses are dismantled and responsibility is embraced, where action replaces rationalization, and where persistence triumphs over procrastination. Your identity determines everything you do far more than your goals, plans, or intentions. Identity drives behavior. Most people focus on what they want to achieve: wealth, health, success, relationships, but they neglect the one factor that determines whether those outcomes will manifest who they believe they are. Your beliefs about yourself shape your choices, your habits, and your actions. If you identify as someone who is capable, disciplined, and resilient, your behavior